The leather chair creaked as I settled behind my father's massive oak desk. After 32 years, Richard Mitchell, titan of Mitchell Industries and my eternally distant father, had suffered a massive heart attack, leaving me to sort through the wreckage of his empire. The combination should be in his personal files, Margaret said, hovering anxiously by the door. She'd been Dad's secretary for over 20 years, the keeper of his secrets and guardian of his office. He changed it recently, but he always kept a record. I nodded, trying to ignore the suffocating weight of being in this office. Growing up, it had been forbidden territory. Dad's taking meetings, Mom would say whenever I asked to see him. Even as an adult, my attempts to join the family business were met with firm resistance. The business world isn't for everyone, Sarah, he'd say, his tone gentle but dismissive. Focus on your art gallery, that suits you better. Now, as I rifled through his meticulously organized files, those memories stung with fresh intensity. The board was meeting tomorrow to discuss the company's future, and I needed access to the financial records kept in his safe. Records that, as his only child and heir, I had every right to review. Here it is, Margaret said, pulling a small notebook from the bottom drawer. He wrote it down last month. The safe was hidden behind a painting, a Monet reproduction I'd always admired. As I entered the combination, my hands trembled slightly. The mechanism clicked, and the heavy door swung open. That's when I saw it, a yellowed envelope tucked behind stacks of financial reports, with my name written in my father's precise handwriting. Adoption papers, Sarah Mitchell. The world tilted sideways. Margaret, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Did you know about this? She paled, taking a step back. Sarah, hi, did you know? Yes, she admitted quietly. Your father made me promise never to tell you. He said it would only hurt you to know. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. The documents inside told a story I'd never imagined. I was born Sarah Collins to a teenage mother named Emily Collins in a small town 3 hours away. The adoption had been private, arranged through a lawyer who'd since passed away. But there was more. Paperwork I didn't initially understand. Medical records, DNA tests, and a series of letters that made my blood run cold. Oh my God, I breathed, reading through the correspondence. He knew who my biological father was. Margaret stepped closer, her curiosity overtaking her caution. What do you mean? I held up a letter dated just before my adoption. James Turner. He was Dad's business partner back then. They were building Mitchell Industries together. I'd heard the name before in whispered conversations about the company's early days. According to this, he was having an affair with my biological mother when she got pregnant. James Turner. Margaret's face went white. But he died in a car accident 30 years ago, I finished, 3 months after I was adopted. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Dad had adopted me knowing I was his partner's illegitimate child. Had Turner's death really been an accident? And why had Dad kept me at arm's length all these years if he'd chosen to adopt me? More questions surfaced as I dug deeper into the safe's contents. Financial records showed regular payments to my biological mother until 5 years ago. A note in my father's handwriting indicated she had died then, cancer, according to the death certificate. I need everything you know, I told Margaret, my shock giving way to determination. Everything about James Turner, about the early days of the company. No more secrets. Margaret sank into one of the visitor chairs, looking every bit her 65 years. It's complicated, Sarah. The company back then. Things happened that your father never wanted to come to light. What kinds of things? She glanced at the door, as if expecting my father to walk in at any moment. James Turner was brilliant but reckless. He made deals. Questionable deals. When your biological mother got pregnant, he wanted to go public about you. Said he was going to clean up his act, make things right. And Dad didn't want that. Your father had just secured major investors. If Turner's dealings had come to light, she shook her head. The company wouldn't have survived. I thought about the timing, my adoption, Turner's death, the company's meteoric rise afterward. Did Dad have something to do with the accident? I don't know, Margaret said quietly. But afterward, he changed. Threw himself into work, kept you at a distance. I think looking at you reminded him of what happened. The office suddenly felt too small, too full of decades of secrets and lies. I gathered the documents, sliding them into my briefcase. I need you to pull everything we have on James Turner. Board minutes, old contracts, anything from that period. Sarah, Margaret's voice was pleading. Your father did what he thought was best. He gave you a good life. A life built on lies, I countered. And now I'm going to find out the truth. As I drove home that evening, my mind raced with possibilities. The board meeting tomorrow would be crucial. They expected me to simply sign over control to the company's current executives. After all, what did an art gallery owner know about running a major corporation? But they didn't know what I discovered. They didn't know that my real father might have been murdered to protect the company's secrets. And they certainly didn't know that I'd spent the last decade secretly taking business classes at night, preparing for the day I'd finally break into my father's world. Dad had kept me away from Mitchell Industries my whole life. Now I knew why. The question was, what else was he hiding? My phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Found more files in storage. Come early tomorrow. There's something you need to see. I smiled grimly. Tomorrow, the board would learn that Sarah Mitchell wasn't just Richard Mitchell's adopted daughter. I was James Turner's flesh and blood, and I was done being kept in the dark. I arrived at the office before dawn, the Mitchell Industries building still dark except for the security lights. Margaret was waiting in the lobby, clutching a cardboard box that looked decades old. I found these in deep storage, she said as we rode the elevator to Dad's office. Your father ordered them sealed after James Turner's death. No one's looked at them since. Inside the box were financial records, old photographs, and a leather-bound journal with James Turner's name embossed on the cover. My hands trembled as I opened it, seeing my biological father's handwriting for the first time. He knew, I whispered, scanning the entries. Turner knew Dad was moving against him. Listen to this. Richard's changed since the investors came in. He's not the same man who started this company with me. Something's coming. I can feel it. If anything happens to me, everything's documented in the offshore account. Margaret leaned forward. Offshore account. I flipped through more pages, finding account numbers and passwords scribbled in the margins. He was keeping records of everything. The questionable deals, the insider trading, all of it. He was protecting himself. Or leaving a trail, Margaret added softly. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Thomas Baldwin, the current CEO. Board meeting moved up to 8 a.m. Don't be late. I checked my watch. 6:45 a.m. They were trying to catch me unprepared. I need you to do something for me, I told Margaret, pulling out my laptop. Use these credentials to access Turner's offshore account. Download everything you find. And Margaret, don't tell anyone. She nodded, taking the journal. What are you going to do? I smiled, thinking about the board members who'd been so quick to dismiss me. I'm going to give them exactly what they expect, at first. The boardroom was full when I arrived at 7:55 a.m. 12 men in expensive suits, all looking at me with barely concealed condescension. Thomas Baldwin sat at the head of the table, my father's old seat. Sarah, he said, his voice oily with false sympathy. Thank you for joining us. We know this must be difficult for you. I took my seat, playing the role they expected, the grieving daughter, in over her head. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate everyone making time for this. Of course, he continued. Now we've prepared all the necessary paperwork. Given your limited experience with the company, we think it's best if you sign over your voting rights to the board. We'll ensure you continue to receive all the benefits of ownership, of course. I pretended to review the documents they slid across the table, my heart racing as I waited for Margaret's signal. Right on cue, my phone buzzed. Found everything. It's worse than we thought. This is very thorough, I said, looking up at Baldwin. But before I sign anything, I have a question. What do you know about James Turner? The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Baldwin's smile faltered slightly. James Turner? That was before my time, but he was your father's early partner, wasn't he? Died in a car accident. That's the official story, I said, standing up. I walked to the screen at the end of the room, plugging in my laptop. But the truth is more interesting. Documents began filling the screen, financial records, emails, photographs. James Turner didn't just die in an accident. He was murdered. And everyone in this room who's been with the company more than 30 years knows why. This is ridiculous, Baldwin sputtered. You can't just come in here with wild accusations. These aren't accusations, I cut him off. These are facts. James Turner was my biological father. And he left proof of everything that happened. Proof my father tried to bury when he adopted me. The older board members had gone pale. They remembered those days, remembered the deals that had built Mitchell Industries. Turner was going to expose everything, I continued. The insider trading, the corporate espionage, the bribes. My father couldn't let that happen. So Turner had an accident, I was adopted, and everyone pretended none of it ever happened. If what you're saying is true, Baldwin said carefully, then your father was involved in criminal acts. Exposing this would destroy the company. I smiled, reaching into my briefcase. That's where you're wrong. I had my lawyers review everything. The statute of limitations has expired on the original crimes. The company itself is protected. The only people at risk are those who helped cover it up, including some people in this room. I laid another stack of documents on the table. This is my proposal. I take control as CEO, effective immediately. Anyone who objects can explain to the SEC why they helped hide a murder for 30 years. The silence that followed was deafening. You can't do this, Baldwin whispered. You don't know anything about running a company. Actually, I said, pulling out one final document, my business degree from night school. I know quite a bit. I've been preparing for this my whole life. I just didn't know why until now. One by one, the board members looked at each other. They knew they were trapped. All in favor of appointing Sarah Mitchell as CEO? Baldwin asked, his voice hollow. The vote was unanimous. As they filed out of the boardroom, looking shell-shocked, Margaret appeared in the doorway. There's something else you need to see, she said quietly. It's about your mother, your biological mother. She didn't die of cancer 5 years ago. I felt my heart skip a beat. What? She's alive, and she's been trying to contact you. The address Margaret gave me led to a small house on the outskirts of the city. I sat in my car for nearly an hour, staring at the modest ranch-style home where my biological mother supposedly lived. According to Margaret's research, Emily Collins hadn't died of cancer. That was another lie orchestrated by my father. She'd been receiving regular payments from a Mitchell Industries subsidiary, hush money, until she started asking too many questions about me 5 years ago. That's when Dad had faked her death records to keep me from ever finding her. Finally, gathering my courage, I walked to the front door. Before I could knock, it opened, revealing a woman in her early 50s. She had my eyes. Sarah, she breathed, one hand covering her mouth. I knew you'd come, eventually. Her name was Emily, and over coffee in her small kitchen, she told me everything. She'd been 19 when she met James Turner, young and naive, working as a receptionist at Mitchell Industries. Their affair had been brief but intense. When she got pregnant, Turner had promised to leave his wife, to make things right. But then Richard Mitchell showed up at my apartment, she said, her hands wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. He offered me a deal, give up the baby for adoption, stay quiet about James, and he'd make sure we were both taken care of for life. Did you know what happened to Turner? I asked quietly. She nodded, tears forming in her eyes. James called me the night before the accident. He said he had proof of everything Mitchell had done, that he was going to expose it all. He wanted us to be a family. She wiped her eyes. The next morning, he was dead. Why didn't you ever try to find me before? I did, she said, many times. But Mitchell had ironclad legal agreements. If I contacted you, I'd lose everything, and worse, he threatened to make sure you lost everything too. He knew I couldn't do that to you. What changed 5 years ago? I saw you in a magazine article about your art gallery. You looked so much like James, I couldn't stay away anymore. I started asking questions, trying to find a way to reach you. That's when Mitchell cut me off, faked my death records. I took out my phone, pulling up the offshore account documents Margaret had found. Turner left evidence of everything. Dad couldn't destroy it because he didn't have the account information. All these years, the truth was just waiting to be found. Emily reached across the table, touching my hand tentatively. What are you going to do now? I'm taking control of Mitchell Industries, I said. The board voted this morning, but there's something else I need to do first. Later that afternoon, I stood in my father's hospital room. He was awake, propped up against pillows, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. You found everything, he said. It wasn't a question. Yes, I moved closer to his bed. I know about Turner, about my real parents, about what you did. He closed his eyes briefly. I gave you a good life, Sarah. Everything I did was for the company, I finished. Not for me, never for me. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I cut him off. You killed my father, adopted me to keep my mother quiet, and spent 30 years keeping me away from the truth. Tell me what I don't understand. I loved you, he whispered. You weren't just some transaction. Watching you grow up, you became my daughter in every way that mattered. Except you never trusted me, never let me near the company. Was that love or guilt? He had no answer for that. I placed a folder on his bedside table. These are the new company bylaws. I'm taking control as CEO, effective immediately. You can fight it, try to expose me. But then everything about Turner comes out too. The company won't survive that kind of scandal. Actually, it will. I've made sure of it. The only reputation at risk is yours. He stared at me for a long moment. You really are James Turner's daughter. He had that same look when he knew he had someone cornered. I'm my own person, I said, standing. Not James Turner's daughter, not Richard Mitchell's. Just me, and I'm done living with your lies. As I reached the door, he called out, Sarah, I am sorry, for what it's worth. I turned back one last time. Take care of yourself, Dad. The nurses have my number if there's an emergency. The next few months were a whirlwind of change. I moved my office to a different floor, unable to work in the space where so many lies had been born. Thomas Baldwin and several other board members resigned, replaced by people I trusted. Emily, Mom, became a regular part of my life, filling in the missing pieces of my history. 1 year to the day after discovering the truth, I stood in front of Mitchell Industries employees, announcing our company's new direction. The name on the building had been changed to Turner Mitchell Industries, acknowledging both parts of my heritage. 30 years ago, I told them this company was built on secrets and lies. Today, we start fresh, with honesty, integrity, and transparency. Later that evening, I visited James Turner's grave for the first time. Emily came with me, holding my hand as I lay flowers against the weathered stone. He will be proud of you, she said softly. I hope so, I replied, thinking of everything that had happened. But more importantly, I'm proud of myself. Back in my office, I looked out over the city lights, thinking about the power of truth, how it could destroy and heal in equal measure. The painting that had hidden my father's safe was gone, replaced by a photograph of James Turner on the day he and Dad founded the company. They were smiling, arms around each other's shoulders, unaware of how it would all end. Next to it, I'd hung a new photo, me and Emily, taken at my first board meeting as CEO. Different generations, different stories, but connected by truth finally brought to light. Dad was still in rehab, recovering slowly. We spoke occasionally, our conversations careful and measured. Perhaps someday we'd find a way forward. But for now, the truth between us was both a bridge and a barrier. I picked up a framed article from my desk, the latest Business Weekly cover story. Sarah Mitchell, uncovering the truth and transforming an empire. The headline made me smile. They had no idea that the real story wasn't about business at all. It was about a daughter discovering who she really was, about secrets finally seeing daylight, and about the power of truth to set us all free.